Welcome, everybody, to a new edition of UFO Man Live. My name is Tim, or UFO Man, and we have a special guest tonight by the name of UFO Jane. Welcome, Jane.
Hey,
And we
hey, happy to be
we
here.
also have a couple of co-hosts by the name of Matt Moniz and Alien Girl 111. So welcome everybody to the panel.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
all right, we're going to have Matt tell us a little bit about himself first. So Matt,
Okay.
tell us about yourself.
All right. Resident of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, scientist for the last 30 years, worked on all kinds of stuff from environmental product testing and last decade and a half, pharmaceutical and research and development, and infectious disease research. Also work as a contractor for a defense contracting company designing armor and weapon systems for the government. Been UFO enthusiast, paranormal researcher for the past 40 years. Done all kinds of famous analysis on stuff like Betty Hill's dress, the soil from bent waters, a handful of other things. Been doing a radio show for the past 17 years on paranormal, spooky South Coast. Yay. What else you want to know?
And you're also a co-host on Interspace TV on that poster behind you with Tom Reed from the Berkshire UFO Encounter. Okay, Alien Girl, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your morning show, about your live streams. Tell us what you're all about.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Amy, and I run the YouTube channel called Alien Girl 111. We go live Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. Mountain Standard Times, usually around noon in the UK. It is the evening in Australia. And every once in a while, we do like a special edition, and we like to just interview people from the community, and we take them into podcasts and distribute them to a bunch of platforms. So it's kind of what we do. I said we a lot there, but it's all me. So yeah, I'm hanging out with all the friends and being on Twitter.
I got to tell you, Alien Girl 111 rocks. It's an excellent show.
So
very entertained by it. I go there as often as I'm awake.
Oh, it's too sweet. Thank
you. UFO Jane, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your background.
Yeah, I want to say I totally agree. Amy's morning show is awesome. And on the Big Phone Home yesterday, we were talking UCR and people were like, oh, you guys should do a morning show. It's like, no, this is the drama. This is the evening, like kind of more serious. And then Amy's like your bright ray of sunshine, in the morning.
Nice. So nice. Just wake up and let's get disclosure started. That's too sweet. Thank you, Jane.
Yeah, it's great, like good news recap and everything. Because it's so hard to keep up with. Like, Matt, that was an incredible intro. Like, I don't know how I'm sure I probably have come across your work before, Matt, and didn't realize it. That was incredible. So I'm very honored.
Sorry, my computer's glitching on me. So I just dropped that.
No, I'm just like, I'm fangirling out over here over this panel. It's an awesome group. Especially after Big Phone Home, too. I'm so lucky I get to talk to so many cool people. It's neat. But yeah, so I'm here in Texas. So I started out, I was not like one of these people who grew up like thinking about UFOs or researching it or seeing anything. So I met a guy out right after I graduated from college. He was really into it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. I had found out that they were being seen in Texas. So I just started writing about it. Then people started sending me their reports. And then I was talking to UFO Man. It looks like we started around the same time in 2012. Yep. Forgive me, guys, I have a little bit of cold too, so it might not sound very good. But yeah, so we started around the same time, and I was anonymous for the first. I was just doing the math before we got started. 5 years, and people would say, "Hey guys," when they email me, or "Hey, all of you." It's like and then I finally, I did the Instagram, and I started interviewing people and like going to events and stuff like that, and getting involved in the community about 2016. So like right before the New York Times story, so like just in time. So just
right,
been,
a year beforehand. Yep.
yeah. But I'm just curious. Really, is in a nutshell is all there is to it. Want to know what's going on. So.
Yeah, same here. I'm very curious as well. I had a couple sightings, well, several sightings, but two of them that changed my world paradigm. And I have to honestly say, because of that, I started UFO Man so that I could research whether other people have had the same kind of sighting. And so far, I have not come across the same kind of objects that I saw.
What did you see?
Not once. I saw 6 objects, broad daylight, underneath 1,000-foot cloud cover, about halfway to the ground, so 500 feet up, 50 feet away, about the size of an automobile car. And they were rectangular with rounded corners. And inside, it looked like it was on fire, like a lava lamp. It was morphing, it was moving. Kind of like that light I featured in the intro with the big ball where it was kind of moving, like that. Okay, but inside these rectangles. And they were evenly spaced in a horizontal line. And they just sat there for 25 minutes. And then they would move as a group and stop. Then they shot off toward a city called Spring Valley, which was about 30 miles away northeast of where I was. They shot off that way, and we saw them as a pinprick. And then they came back and stopped where they were originally. Then there was one second one in from the left that was tumbling end over end, while the other ones remained stationary and evenly spaced. And then these things started disappearing left to right, one after another, like somebody was just putting a shutter over the light and it was gone. Now, these were well defined. You could tell the shape. You could see the fire. I got the impression that they did not want to be filmed because all of us had digital devices, digital cameras, digital phones, whatever, that we tried to film these objects. We had them in our viewfinder. We could see them through our camera. But when we looked at our film later, it was all distorted. You couldn't see anything. So what these were, I have no idea. But they came back 2 days later to the same spot. And I saw 3. 3 of them, not 6, only 3. And they sat there for about 20 minutes, and then they all took off toward the southeast and were gone. And I've never seen them since.
Rectangles in general don't get reported very often. So it's not. I'm trying to think through all the cases that have been sent to me, and that's not ringing a bell. Right. Basically, a bunch of rectangle craft flying in formation, one doing some maneuvers or in distress, hard to tell. It sounds like they were curious about a specific area, appeared over 2 days, and I guess in a specific area.
Right.
Windows. That's interesting.
So there were 12 of us that saw it. It wasn't.
Do you have even myself. the poor quality video that you took?
I do not.
I still think that stuff's valuable because it does, and often that's the case. Usually when somebody does send me a video or they upload a video to MUFON, it's usually not very good, but at least still can prove that something happened, right? Okay. Or that there was some kind of experience, or it could just be the evidence of the distortion, right? So, but
that's a good idea.
Good point. The distortion can give you a good indication of what's causing it. Right. A normal plane would not cause distortion in your camera. I'm looking at this from a scientific lens. What does affect the camera? Okay, the camera's working electronically. So things that emit electromagnetic energy would, in effect, affect electronic devices. That's why a lot of times the old-fashioned film photographs of UFOs seem to be more clear than some of the digital stuff we get today. Because it's just a personal observation.
That's a really Matt had me thinking about stuff before the stream even started, and I'm gonna have to take like some notes on things to follow up on, because that's really just a different angle of looking at UFO evidence and why it may have changed over the years.
What is this? Well, what has changed? What is it changing?
Right.
Like I said, I do this to Tim all the time. Yeah, like I said, I got pieces of Betty's dress and other soil samples. I got Patty's footprint from the famous Patterson Gimlin. I've got pieces of Lizzie Borden's house in my road. When it comes to unexplained, I look into it, and I look into it with a scientific mind. What is there? Okay, what should be? What we're told what should be. Okay, now look at it. Look for the things that are different. Okay, this is different. What causes this to be different? You analyze and you move along. And this is your show, not mine. Sorry.
I'm into it.
We kind of figured it was some type of electromagnetic interference. And it wasn't probably intentional to where we couldn't film them. It may have been just part of their propulsion systems.
You know who you can send the film to or video to? You've had him as a guest. He's the lead photo analyst for MUFON.
You have to remind
Mark D'Antonio.
Oh, Mark D'Antonio. Yeah, I could send it to him. Yeah.
I mean,
I got to look back because it's actually on an old digital camera memory card. If I can find it, I will definitely send it to him. And the next time we're on, perhaps I can upload the footage so you can see the disturbance. But there's absolutely no UFOs visible. It's just lines.
That's really common for people to have these really vivid experiences, and they see all these things with their naked eye, and then the video just shows like almost nothing, or nothing that back up what they saw. And so there's like what Matt was talking about. There's what could the UFOs be doing to the camera or your cell phone? And there's also just, it's really hard. I think people just underestimate, well, maybe not people watching this being subscribed to you, but the general public just overestimates like a person's ability to photograph anything in the sky, especially that you weren't expecting to see, especially if it was at night. I have that experience all the time where there's like that amazing full moon or blood moon, and you're trying to take a cool Instagram video or amazing fireworks or whatever, and it just looks horrible. It's like this looks like this street lamp. Like that's really what it looked like. The recent, not the blood moon, some really cool moon recently. It was big and orange, but it did not look impressive.
From what I've been told lately about cameras, in regards to the digital cameras, you almost have to have a large lens so that you let in more light so that you can capture the moon as it is rather than the digital interpretation of the image, which is expensive. So a lot of us use what we have and we come up with a dot. Alien Girl, want to hear from you. What do you think about what we're talking about?
Well, I think, what Jane says is right on. I've never really heard of, and what I've looked at, rectangular, UFOs are definitely not very common from what, people have heard about. But I just think it's fascinating. What I love, I think it's funny, Jane. I never knew that you were anonymous. I think I knew for the first 2 years of Texas UFO sightings, and so I never knew that they thought you were a guy when they were sending in their
or like
sightings.
A group of guys, basically.
Right. Like you couldn't just be the lone woman looking for the UFOs.
Right.
I got to tell you, UFO Jane, Jane, I got to tell you, when I first started live streaming, I actually got a comment that said, don't show the man behind the curtain.
Oh,
Leave it up to the mystery of who you are
yeah.
online, because it's more important that way.
Well, that would have been a different path. That would have been, I don't know, it would have been a bad. I mean, then I wouldn't like be able to hang out with you guys. I think the friendships and the relationships are worth it. But yeah, I think there's something to that. I think you can you can really say what you want to say if you're anonymous. So
I see a lot of live streams where all they do is use their avatar, and that kind of bothers me because I like it when we have personal interaction where we can see each other, because you can kind of judge by the way someone's talking or looking at you as if they're conveying the truth, the way they see it maybe, but the truth nonetheless. Mm-hmm. So it's better if we can hang out as a group and just chat and see what the people in the chat room are saying and things of that nature. But one thing I would like to bring up tonight, and we were talking about this at length before the live stream started, and that is the Calvine UFO photo. We do have some images. We'll take a look at them, and then we'll talk about them again like we did prior to the show starting. Here's the first image. This is from retired Royal Air Force Officer Craig Lindsay, who held on to this copy of the original pictures taken by two hikers from 1990, or 32 years he hung on to them, waiting for someone to ask about the case. Now, I know that I saw that image back in 1990 when it originally came out. Matt, did you see that back in 1990?
Yes, I did. And I just finally remembered who showed it to me. It was Colin Andrews.
Okay, and I think I was following Colin Andrews back then too. So very well could have been. This is an enlargement of that same photo. Now, I know there are 13 photos, but we're focusing mainly on one. This is a little bit bigger. Matt, what type of jet did you say, or plane did you think that was?
Well, I'm pretty sure it is a British Harrier jump jet. It is was known as a VTOL. It's a vertical takeoff and landing jet. It has vectored thrust, which means it can fly pretty much like a helicopter does, but it also has supersonic capability. So it's, people is like, why would they use a jet like that? Well, if this other object can fly supersonic, you want to be able to chase it with a jet. A helicopter is just not going to go supersonic. So
right. So where do you think? Sense. So where do you say this jet was stationed in 1990?
In 1990, more than likely, it was stationed up in Scotland. Scotland has a particular base where they fly these jets out of. They train with the Harrier jump jet, the F-111 Aardvark. They have trained with a number of different other vehicles up there. The reason why they train is they have basically those mountain canyons that they fly through for what is called map of the earth training. So they train for low level, hiding from radar, hiding from SAM sites and stuff like that. It's for escape and evasion training. Right. And so that jet being in that area during that time period makes total sense, because they had dozens and dozens of them already up there.
Right. So we have a blow up of the original image from that photo that gentleman from the Royal Air Force was holding. And here it is right here. Now the color has been altered a little bit for clarity. And then here it is, well defined. Now, one thing I want to mention is I'm leaning toward this being a remote controlled vehicle, because it has what appears to be a fin on the right-hand side, which would probably be in the rear. And we were talking about this prior to the live show. So we're going to go into it a little bit and see what everybody thinks. First, we're going to start with UFO Jane. What do you think, UFO Jane?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's alien, if it's ours, if it's a hoax. I don't think we have enough information. I want to see the other photos. I want to see the exact picture of the location with the fence. There's just so much to be desired, right? So that's truly what I believe. But I don't know. So I guess I've been unimpressed, and how can I really move forward with this? But then Matt's take on this and his theory about the RAF plane and how this could be. Oh, I guess I don't know if we've gotten into that part of it with the audience yet. I know we were talking before the stream, so I'll let Matt talk about it. But that's getting me wondering if this, could be something interesting, but maybe ours sounds like something we were familiar with and purposely flying around with. So I still think it's cool though, I guess, if it's ours. Like I'm glad that this photo's out there. I'm glad we know about it. If there's other people, researchers in Scotland who've covered cases like it before from that time frame, they can add this to the books, and so this expands the UFO field. So I'm happy about it, but yeah, I think Matt's theory is getting me a little more, curious about it again. I was kind of just ready to move on from it a little bit, but.
Right. I have to say the reason I was looking at it as not being of alien make was because it has defined structure in a sense of it looks like maybe 6 beams, and you can see the beams. It's like a seam that goes down to the bottom of the craft, and a seam goes up to the top, and then you've got it going down to the right, down to the left, and I'm sure it repeats on the other side. So it almost appears to me like some type of material stretched tight over this structure and then a fin in the back that might be controlling it. And I thought, maybe the plane is actually radio controlling this object, and then it would be remote controlled in some way. I don't know. It's just a theory. It just doesn't look right to me for some reason. It rubbed me the wrong way, and I just thought I'd bring that out there and let everybody give me their opinion. Alien Girl, what do you think?
So when I look at the photo, do you think you could bring it back up real quick? Okay. So I see a lot of different things, honestly. I see a lot of different things. But what I do know is that this was a photo. You can take it down now. This was a photo that got people talking. This is something you could hand to your friend who's not into UFOs and be like, "Wow, look, they thought a flying saucer. This looks like a photo of a flying saucer." And people looked at it twice. This was something people could look at twice. So the other component about this video that makes it phenomenal is that like all our friends found it. Vinny Adams and Signal and Graham Rendell and a couple other people all got together, and they went and they found this. And Nick Pope had done the research back in the 90s, talked about the photo, right?
Right.
But nobody could ever confirm that the photo ever existed 100%. But Nick Pope said it did. Nick Pope said he saw it with his eyes. Okay, so what this proves, since Vinny and all these cool people went and found this at the archives, it proves that Nick Pope, was giving out valid information in the 90s, which I think is interesting to say. That's what I took from the whole takeaway of it, and it got people talking. So
it did. I mean, we're talking
it looked
about
like
it
a flying
right
saucer.
Yeah, we're talking about it. Saucer.
Okay. I gotta say though, when we were zooming in on it now, I will say I saw the reflection thing more. Like I see it even more, and I can't unsee it, guys. And like it's not like like if you look at pictures of like the B-2 bomber and stuff, it's like those are smooth. Like those are smooth surface. Like this is not a symmetrical, smooth surface, top, bottom.
Right.
It's not uniform in color. The original. So I mean, it kind of does look like a rock too, and like Matt, like so. I mean, there's just, and again, it's like until I don't know the hikers, I don't. I know
Right.
that Tom DeLonge initially, right before the Pentagon video, no, or after the Pentagon videos were released, one of the photos that Tom DeLonge posted on his Instagram was the Billy Meyer saucer, which is, you know, also got a lot of people talking back in the day, Amy, you know, now everybody just thinks it's a hoax. Right? And then there's, of course, there's lore about, or the story is, word on the street is there's some Men in Black involvement, and there's some disinformation and fake photos in with the real photos. So, you know, it's hard. This is separate from the U.S. Pentagon disclosure leaks in certain camps. So it's coming from, well, not coming from Nick Pope, but that's an interesting point, Amy, kind of like the credibility of the people who are coming forth with it. I'm not mistrusting that. I don't have, like, you know, heebie-jeebie vibes, I guess, about like them, you know, sharing the photo. It just seems like, hey, here's some new, you know, here's some new evidence.
Right.
Exactly. It is getting people talking, and that is the whole point, is to get people talking and get them to propose theories and to develop outcomes and try to actually research it till we can get the answers. And right now, we don't have the answers in regards to that photo.
And if we can prove the RAF, because one of my also, when I was saying there's a lot that leaves to be desired, my other question was, and Glurp the alien was kind of rolling his eyes at me because he thought this would be impossible to get. But I was like, well, could we figure out who's flying the plane at the time? And did they see it as well? And where's that part? And so, Matt, I don't know if, I don't know if you've even shared it. Let's get into Matt's take on it, because it's making me, I know I said that it looks like a rock. Hey, if it looks like a rock, it talks like a rock, whatever, it's a rock. But this is making me, this would be a new element. If we could find out about this plane, Matt, I think that adds a whole other element.
I will tell you how you can.
Yeah. Okay.
If you want to go run it down, okay. All Air Force bases, and be it foreign and or domestic, keep logs of a plane in its flight. Okay, it lists who piloted it, how much it weighed, how much fuel went into it, every little. And I'm sure Tim can verify, him being in the military. Military loves to log everything it can, because it comes down to accounting. It comes down to money. What did you spend your money? What did you spend your money on? Okay. A government is not going to waste jet fuel, pilot time of a very expensive aircraft and whatever just for a joyride. Mm-hmm. They have on occasions, and things have turned into joyrides. But to go out and go after something, there has to be justification. And once you have justification to do it, you have to have a documentation of doing it, what you're doing. So there should be flight logs from all the local bases of all of those aircraft frames that were there on that day. Not to say that couldn't have been classified afterwards, but there's the other thing. You look for the hole in the logs. This plane was serviced on this day, went flying. Why is all the information on the day of this thing occurring missing in this aircraft?
Right.
Yeah.
You got where I'm going? If some super sleuth wants to go pulling records and go dumpster diving in records, they can find out the answer to your question.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that'd be a real helpful one. Yeah, I mean, that would be. Oh, absolutely, because it takes away from the hoax, like, because the only reason that you can put hoax on the table, because we can't prove that from the photo. I mean, the problem is the photo just, we can't tell. So and since we can't interview the witnesses, we just don't know. Like, we don't know why the RAF officers were so trusting of them, and if they're, I don't know. And so if we can identify the plane, so in a way get another witness or another corroborating, person who was there, and it happened to be a RAF plane, a military plane. Now we have a military plane photographed next to a UFO. And so now I'm thinking, okay, that's probably not there's less chance to me that it's a rock, unless somebody can, do some analysis, and additional photos to prove otherwise. So I think any other just aspects that we can add to this photo I mean, we'd turn over another rock, and then I'm not wanting to move on from it, as much. So we can actually expand ufology a little more if we can keep digging. And it sounds like maybe we could. Maybe we have enough clues to sleuth. So
yeah, it's a subject matter that I think we can continue researching and maybe come back later and see if we can bring together what we have found to support or not support this photograph. I do have a video I'd like to play. It's of James Fox stating that he has both photographic and video proof of alien bodies that were flown back to the United States from the Virginia, Brazil UFO crash. And he does come out and say it. So here we go.
I'd heard very little about it, and we uncovered testimony, and I'm sorry that I didn't get a copy of the film to you prior to this interview. We uncovered testimony that's never been seen or heard on this case, of people that came in direct contact of a live creature, unknown creature, in broad daylight, people that allegedly drove the creature around in an official capacity for the Brazilian military, doctors that took autopsies and x-rays of the creature, all on camera, all testifying as to what their first-hand experiences were with this case. And I promise you, as sensational as the trailer might come across, Moment of Contact, it delivers. You will believe this case after you watch this movie. After, you know what? Not watch the movie. After you hear the testimony of the people that were there.
I mean, look, it is astonishing. Doesn't cover it, but it's an astonishing story. Like you say, I haven't had a copy of it, so I haven't seen it. I've read about it. Have you got pictures of the creatures?
That's,
You're sounding like a man who has. but can't say right now.
Let me answer the question by, I'm just trying to not expose our contacts and also tell your audience what I know. Mm-hmm. We have located both photographic and video evidence, yes.
Okay, well that's I mean that's going to.
I'm not trying to evade the question or spike. I don't want that to come across the wrong way. But to answer your question, yes, we have.
All right, you've got the material, and is that material, which presumably isn't in the documentary, are you going to release that at some point? Will you be able to?
It's not in the documentary yet. We have. God, there's so much stuff I'd like to go into, and I just don't want to. I don't want to compromise. I don't want to compromise or jeopardize our efforts. But just
plus, also we've got less than 2 minutes, so there's not much we can say.
I don't want your audience to think, what is this guy just dancing around this issue? Just imagine for a moment. Yes, we have located the evidence, and we've offered an extremely large cash prize for said evidence, and we're working on it.
Right. So you know where it is. And you're trying to obtain it. How cool is that? That is, speaking to me from the location that you're speaking to me from, that's a hell of a thing to drop on the world. But if you're going to drop something like that on the world, you might as well do it from where you're standing, James. That's astonishing. Look, I mean, I love talking with you. We need to talk longer. What's the take? All right, since I've only got 45 seconds, what's the takeaway point that people should gather from this?
That a UFO crashed, and that beings were recovered, beings were captured, recovered, and eventually we have compelling testimony flown back to the United States of America. I'm continuing this story as an ongoing, unfolding story, but that I want to find out where ultimately the bodies ended up. We know they're in the United States, and who has the authority to release this evidence. And again, I tell your audience, I do not expect you to believe this because it's too outside the realm of believable. But I promise you, in my 30-year career, I would not put my own reputation on the line if I didn't sincerely and honestly believe this happened.
So what do you think about that? Anyone, jump in.
Well, so the only thing I'm wondering about is I feel like if I knew where there was photographic video evidence of aliens, or if I had it, I just can't imagine I would say it on TV like that before. Because if with everything you know about the cover up, and I don't know, that seems like a risky thing to put out there, and it seems like it would put it in jeopardy, this evidence. So that honestly is my gut reaction. It wasn't the gut reaction when I first heard it. I was just kind of, could this be real? And wondering what cases in Brazil maybe that we already know about that it could be related to. Like there's the I was just reminding myself of the names, but the Antonio Boas case, or I don't know how to pronounce the last name, from 1957. Like, could it have been those, humanoids that purportedly abducted him? There's the Colares incident. So there's Brazil is rich with some amazing cases. Right. But I'm just wondering why he felt comfortable saying that live.
Unless he knows for certain that he can get his hands on it, or he actually is in possession of it and has the go-ahead to release it for some reason. Or
wouldn't you wait till wouldn't you just release it though? Like, would you really want to tell people you're about to release it? It seems like a risky thing to do.
Yeah, it probably is.
Are you going to get? You already know that it was covered up. You already know that there's this crash retrieval program in Brazil, and that. So why are you announcing it? That you have evidence of? Like, aren't you a little bit concerned that you might get something might get in the way of it coming out? But yeah, I don't know. That's just coming from I'm telling you guys, if I had a photo of an alien right now, I would put it together and I would release it, or I would privately have a meeting. Like, I'd have Amy and some experts on that I really trust to look at it first, and then we would release it together, right? Like, I don't think I would talk about it before releasing it.
I don't know. I suppose it depends on the person and what their ethics are in regards to releasing the information.
Well, it's a risk. It's not an ethic. Like, that seems risky to announce to the world that you have evidence that historically has been attempted to be covered up. So it seems like it would put you in a vulnerable situation that could put your disclosure in jeopardy.
Maybe he is in a dangerous situation.
Maybe he's already in that. So yeah, like maybe that's. Maybe he's like, I got to get this out because I may not be able to get this out.
Right, exactly.
Right, like that makes a lot more sense.
Letting people know, hey, I've got something. Something happens to me. This comes
I hate
out.
that. I hate that.
Right. What do you
think? This is called I have insurance policy.
Yeah, shoot,
I think Jane's right on with that. I think he's taking a huge risk, especially after he created the phenomenon. That movie was huge. You could talk about that movie with all sorts of people who aren't into UFOs and they'd have some sort of interest. So the fact that we're talking about James Fox here is what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
Because he's taken a huge risk. He's got such a good reputation. People love what he's saying. And now he says he's finding the alien bodies. And he's got pictures and video footage. And it's like, wow, like what I really liked about the phenomenon was that he talked about the Zimbabwe children, which for a lot of people is huge. It's really hard to shake that one off. There's something there. And so I think a lot of people really appreciate the deep dive he does on this kind of stuff. And I'm excited to see what it is. For one, there's some evidence in the story that could really truly be right on. Like, number one, the alien touched someone and infected someone and they died. There's got to be hospital records with that, right?
Right.
And then they drove the creature around for the Brazilian military. Surely there's some sort of document that, like, hey, we took an alien for a ride. So there's some validity to this, but like, look in the past, you know, we've been disappointed before. Stephen Greer came out with a photo of an alien too. Right. And he announced it and kind of had a little bit of a buildup, but it's weird because this is James Fox.
Right.
We don't want, it's just a different category of this photo. Like, he's setting us up maybe for disappointment. Now we're really excited. Maybe he should just show everybody and not have any buildup so people can make their own decisions fast enough. I don't know. It's a risk, just like Jane said. It's a huge risk. So we'll see what happens, how people respond to it. That
this is a picture of the guy who was abducted reportedly in the, you can't really see, but he was with a doctor after that encounter. So, and then of course the Colaris incident too, there were many medical injuries. I think you're right, Amy. Like, there's probably a trail here to back up what James Fox is saying. Whereas with the Calvine UFO, it's two hikers, right, who saw it, and we just don't know of any other historic cases, I guess, that are standing out around that time. So,
well, we have an agreement from Tom Reed. Welcome, Tom. I agree with UFO Jane. Just look at what happened to my father as he was connected and had safe deposit boxes. So a lot of things happened to his father, right, Matt?
Correct. His death is curious.
Yeah, I hate that. Ugh.
It was attributed to mold that was found only in his office that was in this building, you know. And if you want to take somebody out in a natural way, is one that isn't going to be questioned. You know, there's so many different ways, different what are called vectors into a human system that you can use to take somebody out if you know what you're doing.
Right.
Like I said, I work in infectious disease research. I know how easy it is to give somebody or slip somebody something, and, you know, next thing you know, oh, something exotic, got them. Oh, okay. It's, you know, that rare thing, not thinking, you know, that it was a hit.
Yeah, then they could say it's natural causes, and then they brush it off. Yeah. Correct. The original UFO man before me, back in the 70s, he had a curious death as well. And so when I started doing UFO man, people were like, wait a minute, didn't he die? And that's why I had to specify I was the new rejuvenated version of UFO man, because the original one had a mysterious death due to what he knew. So it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what motivates. So when I was anonymous, you know, it's like, why am I going to go talk about this thing that clearly the government doesn't want me to talk about? Like, that doesn't seem very intelligent of me, you know, like, as a human. And then I was like, well, but if that's the case, right, if there really is this big truth that's bubbling under the surface and this is happening, like, we have to, like, disclosure has to happen, right? Like, and this has to be out there in the open, and we all have to be talking about it. It has to be really hard to keep this a secret. I mean, who cares if aliens are visiting or not? It's the people, the witnesses and the experiencers and the researchers who've been intimidated or, you know, mysteriously died or just like felt like it was a trauma for them that they had to keep secret their whole life. Like, that's, to me, what disclosure is really about. It's about vindicating all those people instead of oh, they were just wearing some tinfoil hat. Yeah, because that's just despicable. Like, none of those things should have ever happened. It just sucks.
Sorry, guys. I gotta take something. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why it's not too bad of an idea to maybe have a friend stand in and tell the world your story as opposed to yourself. You know, like if I had some information and, you know, I don't know, maybe I know a lot of information about something the government doesn't want me talking about. But I tell a good friend, and they don't care about the reputation. They don't care what's going to happen. They got kind of this outlaw lifestyle. You know, they're used to like getting away from bullets and dealing with the cops. So this person instead shares the information.
Mm-hmm.
And the person behind the person, they hold the real story, right? They hold the real story and they get to keep everything. And they don't need anybody on their back, right? They don't need anybody following them because they already got their friend in front of them dodging the bullets for them because they're the one who's willing to take the hit. So I think that could happen too. I think that's a very good thing that could happen because all these people who have, you know, they're everything together, they don't really want to shake it up. And that really would be the safest way, especially if you want to live out like the next 30, 40 years of your life without having it affect you. You know, and you really want, and also as like somebody who hears that information, it's like, you got a photo, let's get it out. You know, someone's like, well, I'm scared, you know, I could lose everything, blah, 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 blah. Why not just be the, sorry, Hides and Long Grass, I'm done. Sorry, everybody. I could, okay. Sorry.
Scares us in a good way. Who said, I got a comment, the same comment yesterday, but who was it from? I think it was from Christopher Blaine.
Oh,
like,
that's
UFO
funny.
Jane scares me. We're scary as women.
We are. Do you know what could happen? It's true though, man. We've got to keep, but I don't know. You know, I just think the information's got to get out there. I think that's why some things sound like half truths, right? Like we can buy into something that's like, oh my gosh, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. But then we find all these freaking connections and you're like, no, wait.
Right.
I just think so many of these stories might not have all the details, but some of the details may be incredibly true.
Right.
Which is what's scary once you get into this, right? You're like, wait, that could that be true?
Well, and sorry, what were you saying?
I was just going to say that there are some things that I learned about in the last 2 years, I'd say, that totally floored me because some of the things are so far-fetched that it's really hard to wrap your head around it. And if any of it's true, then we are much more involved with the alien phenomenon, not just the UFO phenomenon, but the alien contact phenomenon than what they're disclosing. And it could really be something that would change not only our way of living, but our way of perceiving reality, what I have found out. And I can't say it because to me, it's right now it's theory. So I'm just going to leave it sit. But there is so much stuff out there that's going on. And if the average everyday person would take a little bit of time and research what they have questions about, they're going to be blown away. And that's why I wanted to bring UFO Jane on, because UFO Jane does the research. She has a great channel. You need to go over there and check it out. She's even looking into something currently about the ships that were spotted in the 1800s. The airships, The one from Calvine looks like one of those airships.
Actually.
And that's kind of where I was coming from. It looks like one of them. Except without the cupola and other things attached to it. But
it also looks like one of the other Vimana that they used to draw to in the Vedic texts.
Yes.
It
Love
was a Zeppelin. Everybody looking at the pancake type one, but there was another one that was fish-like. Actually, they said that original design was flown before the Wright brothers did in India. I think there was before powered flight. Look that one up.
You know what had kind of forgotten about the Vimana when I was doing all the airship, research. But so I'm I don't know why my brain just didn't compare the two, just didn't make a connection with the shape and the design and stuff. So I'm gonna have to look at that. I'm looking up some pictures now. Yeah, especially with, I don't know, maybe having Matt's like blowing my mind. This
Sorry.
in a good way. I know, I love it. Yeah, well, and so the airships it's a perplexing, I think, thing, in my opinion, for the UFO community, because everybody, it's just this narrative of, the last 75 years of secrecy, the last 75 years of secrecy. We just hear that over and over and over again. And the secrecy, I mean, I don't know about the aliens, but the secrecy, I think, started long before that. I mean, at least, in the US. I mean, you have a whole straight from 1800 to 1899. I don't know about 1800 but it's
going back.
Going
back.
Sure, I actually because it is so overwhelming and there's so much. I did, for this particular recent deep dive, I've set a timeline for myself and kind of only, laser focused on that, and it's kind of more United States, I guess. But in the United States, right, from early 1800s, everybody knows about, well, not everybody, but there's that key 1897 year with the huge, uptick in cases, but it started much, longer, even in the US. So there's a whole century of these ships flying around, and they were all varieties. It's not like there was just one kind. There were different shapes. There were, yes, the cigar. I mean, they just called them airships. They weren't so obsessed with the shapes back then, it seemed like. But yeah, cigar cylinder. But there were saucers, kind of like the Calvine, like you saw, and the vast majority of them were associated with anonymous human inventors, even the fake ones. It wasn't people suggesting that they were Martians. It was, is this Thomas Edison, or is this, this scientist or this inventor or whatever? Because there was essentially a race to just fly. We weren't even trying to go to space yet. That was not the goal. If anything, the goal was to get to the North Pole. There were still places on the planet that we were trying to get to with these airships. Right. So, but where is that? When you learn about the flight of history, it's just this missing chunk. And what I think is that there was some technology in these early airships that surpassed Zeppelin, that surpassed commercial planes. And so we now know of some of those inventors of those flying machines. And so you have to wonder, what groups were they running around with, and did they really stop making things when officially the Hindenburg in the 30s, the disaster, we just stopped, with that whole era of flight. We were just done with it, even though we had all the infrastructure, we had buildings, set so that these blimps, or Zeppelins could dock, right? So there's just something very suspicious about the human flight history, and it seems like there's a lot of ways to get around, that there's not just one way. You don't just have to just fly like a bird. There's a lot of different ways to get around. Right. And it's definitely going to be, but there's going to want to be, that one money maker, that one, you can't have that's hard to regulate, to be fair, to have a ton of different types of flying machines all around the country. It's a little bit tricky. So I'm fascinated with whatever that the secret flying machine builders were, and how that has, what their legacy is today with, purported, actually did there was a secret space program that had 30 plus astronauts that people don't realize. Like this did happen. So I wonder what the legacy is of that. Of course, you have the legacy of the German craft as well, because this was pre people don't like to talk about the Nazis, experimenting on saucer designs, but they did. There were saucers in Germany.
The Vril.
In
You're referring to the Vril.
40s and 50s,
The
right? But
Vril and the Hamabu.
there were also German airships seen purportedly in the U.S. Okay, so in the 1800s. So that started so there's a whole human history timeline, right? And then, of course, then you bring in all those exotic encounters that just mess up that whole timetable, right? That makes none of that, it's like, okay, well, there's clearly something else going on. And so the question is, it's just which came first? Were there cigar-shaped ET craft that were recovered, that were seen, that were known about maybe by certain rich human inventors, right? And then they kind of did sloppy jobs of it, trying to reverse engineering it, having games with each other, trying to compete with each other. Look, look at the craft I've made, and guess how, maybe you're guessing how I cracked this technology. So you can tell I'm having trouble thinking, guys, because I've got a cold and I've got Mucinex and I'm tired. So I don't know if anybody can follow me. I can't even follow my own thoughts right now. But I do think it's a web, though, a cobweb of secret rogue human tech that started, yes, Matt, like way before the 1800s. That really makes it hard for us to figure out what is ET.
Look what happening in the 1800s. It was just the start, quote unquote, of the Industrial Revolution. Who would have the technology, the money, and the equipment and power to do something like that? Do you think your average person, like what the Wright brothers did, it would be very simple. You're talking big bucks, which means power, and and this is early revolution. We didn't have, the techno barons of like what we have today. It was just the beginnings of the railroad and things like that. So the only people that would have had that kind of money to do that would have been governments, and that type of infrastructure and being able to do this and that. If it wasn't a government, and it wasn't a little, wannabe mogul looking to be things, then that only leaves one other thing to make it something else.
Yeah, right. And so who else would make it? It seems like that maybe we were inspired by these pre-craft, and so we have like propellers and these kinds of obvious, this is not going to the moon. Nevertheless, another solar system, right? And I saw a comment about Jules Verne, and I want to remind people, Jules Verne was writing about this stuff after people were seeing things. So there were airships spotted before he was born. Yeah. So, and remember too, this was time travel. This is not, there were stories, there were sci-fi stories, I guess, but time travel wasn't even really a concept. This is something I learned diving into the 1800s. Like that wasn't,
it wasn't a concept in the 1800s, but time travel was thought
of course. Yeah. But like, I'm just saying, as far as like people sci-fi savvy, like they weren't thinking in like the terms that we're thinking today, like portals and warp drives and time travel. Nobody was like, oh, is this a time traveler from the future in their cigar UFO? That is not what people were doing. There were people who purportedly encountered pilots that claimed to be from Mars, but even those same witnesses on the same vein would say, well, this could be the other leading theory was that this was, and it all led up to the Spanish-American War, which is, but there were accounts of, people speaking Spanish, of, and so there were a few different accounts. So like it went both ways, where you had I guess American pilots who had created airships to create an advantage over Spain, right? And then you had the reverse where you had, well, we think this could be a spy, essentially a spy ship. You're a spy drone trying to check us out. And there were reports of airships that maybe would be able to drop bombs, drop dynamite. And so this was all, this is 1800s. This shouldn't have been happening, right? And if I had to brush up on my history a little bit, and the Spanish-American War was kickstarted by a mysterious explosion of a ship, the USS Maine. And just like a year before, there's this airship, and they're saying we're going to be dropping things on Spain. So
keep in mind, in the the Civil War, they were using balloons as observation posts on the battlefield. So, and what's interesting is that technology was really kept out of the media and stuff at that time because that was strategic. What we would consider today very like, why is this strategic? It's just a balloon. But back then, people didn't understand the idea of man's flying was still not registering in every man's head, that you could fly. So these aerial tethered balloons shouting down observation to their cannoneers, okay, adjust your fire left and forward, they're hiding behind this bunker. That's a strategic advantage that a government wants to keep secret.
Right.
So if they did that in the Civil War, what they developed after that is what I'm saying, precursors to your stealth bomber. Oh, it's a Zeppelin that they weaponized, and then moving on from there. Correct? Is that where you were going with that?
Yeah, and you see it's like there's the airships, and then there's the saucers, and then it's orbs, and then people are using the term UFO, then it starts to morph into that. Then you get your triangles, and then you get right. So there's just definitely this evolution, and you have to explain some of it with rogue human tech. You can't exclude the extraterrestrial conversation. You can't remove abductions because it's just convenient to do. And we know, right? So it's all, but it makes it very, very hard. And if we have humans that are potentially lying, right, about this ET tech, or saying, because I think there was definitely a pattern of humans saying that they were probably from Mars, I'm probably saying that they were lying, saying, because they look just like regular people, and they're like saying they're from Mars to these witnesses on the ground, in Texas or California or wherever. And so if this was a group of people that was aware of the extraterrestrial presence and was aware that there are abductions happening and there are Martian visitors or whatever, it can behoove you to just mix yourself into that mythology and all that confusion. And then also the other inventors and other governments creating ships, and it's also puts a layer of disinformation and confusion for them, because you don't want newspaper articles that are not exposing what you're actually doing, right? So it's a really great form of disinformation. And so it's so hard when we're dealing with so much deception in all of this. And I think some of it probably, it's lost in history. So it's maybe impossible. I can't go back in time and do a lie detector test, or we don't have the time traveling machines yet. Well, I don't have access to go and watch, what was happening. So I don't know if we're ever, I don't know that I'll ever get to the bottom of the 1800s airships, unfortunately.
But it's really cool that you're digging into it, though, and we appreciate your efforts for the community, because it'll bring that information out.
Yeah.
And it's one of those lost, like you said, it's kind of like a lost segment of information, and it needs to be researched, and thank you for doing that. One thing I want to say,
you're in Texas, right? Sorry to interrupt. So you obviously have been to Aurora then, when you
we were just there actually.
Now I talked to one person that was there back in the day, and from what I understand, when they initially started doing this, the whole cemetery had been cordoned off, and after they found something with a metal detector, and then they came back and there's a 4-inch tube hole drilled down, and whatever was there was gone. Now I've heard that the entire site has been excavated out and whatever. Is this?
Yeah, I think you're right. All you can see is really like the touristy headstone. You can go to the cemetery. You can, like I took a picture with the plaque, that mentions the crash and that, the alien body buried. But yeah, it's all, you can go as a tourist and be in the area where it happened. But as far as I know, that's all lost to history, and that there was an excavation done and there was a swoop of the area. And there's been, Jim Mars did a lot of good research. So he was, he actually did talk to, back in the, I guess it was the 70s that he was doing that. And so he was able to talk to some of the, I guess, I can't remember who he was able to talk to, but
Wally Oates was the owner of the property where they dumped all the material in the well.
Right.
And his property had been sought after by other researchers. I know a couple of people that actually got in and got inside the well. There is a bad type of arthritis type of thing that Wally suffered from, and they blame it from the contaminated well.
Yeah, the gout.
There was far more than just gout, but it was something on steroids. Now, from what I understand, there's a new owner, and he's not let anybody on that property. From what I am told, and you're right, Jim Mars was the one that really broke this. I knew Jim 30-something years ago. Really, really nice guy. But he's the one that really dug up a lot of that information about that case. Everybody tried to write it off. Oh, it was just a newspaper hoax story. And he actually talked to living people back then that remembered the case and then remember it as being real. So, and he was a straight up guy. So, yeah, that is a real case that you have right down in your area. So, why don't you pick up the mantle?
Yeah, well,
You're a smart girl.
I'm trying. I'll have another video coming out because we went out to Aurora, and the problem is it really is like it was great that he was there in the 70s doing it, because it is really hard. Like, you just cannot find any living names or people, but what's really crazy is people don't know, but like right around Aurora there's Stephenville, and then there was a famous case in 2008, but there was an airship over Stephenville around the same time. There was also an explosion over Dublin, Texas, the same year of a craft. It exploded in the sky over people's heads. There was debris that fell to the ground, so there would have been something collected from that. And so we went out, to where that was. You can go. I didn't find any debris. I don't think there'd be any left over at this point. So there was a lot going on that year.
Well, you'd be surprised how long debris can hang out.
Well,
trust me.
Well, I can't say I didn't look. But I kind of didn't really know what I was looking for in that case, because we don't really, I don't know what it was that exploded at.
Well, there's always
it was like a bright ball of light is what the story was, and there was no alien body, so Aurora's gonna take the cake. But I was surprised at how many close encounters, essentially, of ships there were in Texas, and that there could be physical evidence that was confiscated, I'm sure, at the time, and it's probably in somebody's house somewhere, right? Maybe some rich person's house, I'd like to think, here in Texas, maybe.
It could happen.
Yeah.
What's funny, Jane? Recently, I saw an article that came out that said Texas is ranked as one of the lowest UFO sighting states in the country. But according to your research, that's in error.
I don't know. Because I don't compare what I'm doing to other states. So I really, when people ask me, I really have no frame of reference because I'm not following what's going on in California. I really just kind of, and also, I wouldn't say I've been on hiatus this last summer, but it's been really hard for me to keep up just personal stuff. So I'm not as actually in touch this particular summer as I am most summers with the activity. I would say it feels normal right now, the activity from past summers. Those lists are so hard. This is the most UFO sightings or whatever. Those articles come out all the time, and but they're so hard because it's like, what are they sourcing from? And is it MUFON? Is it New Fork? I don't think any of them talk to me when they put these articles out, right? I don't think they're factoring in the cases I'm covering, so it's hard to know. I don't know. The UFO reports are such a myriad that I don't know how much we can learn from that, because it's also such a cultural thing too. If you're looking out at the sky more, like I think there were reports during the pandemic increased in some areas because people were just outside more and they were just looking at the sky more. So it's hard. And people will ask me, where are you most likely to see a UFO in Texas? And it's such a boring answer, but you're most likely to see a UFO in Texas where you're most likely to live. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's the truth.
It's human, the number of people. And so that said, it actually is interesting when you have a case or two from a small town, right? Or a particular area like Stephenville that is very active, but it's not Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas there's always going to be UFOs in Austin. There's airports and there's lots of people, and so
it's equating it to like fishing. You're going to find more fish when you go to the lake.
Yeah. You just need to look up. You look up and you go out at night. That's when I usually see things.
Yeah.
Is at night. It's rare for me to see anything during the day, but I do see a lot of things at night. I'd say in the last 2 months, I've had 18 sightings.
Wow.
So that's quite a bit. There's a lot of activity where I live.
Cool.
And from what Cheryl Costa said when we had her on the channel, the warmer states are where you're going to see more sightings. So Texas would be included with that. And also New Mexico, where Amy lives, Alien Girl. And Alien Girl, I want you to give your take on your area in regards to UFO sightings, UFO activity.
Oh yeah, most definitely. It's just like it's all over. It's so normalized in cultures, especially in Dulce, New Mexico. The alien base at Archuleta Mesa is just there. It is what it is. It's over here. I have my friend, one of my good friends. You met him, met her, Tim. Denise. She grew up on a homestead in Roswell. And she's cool. She's really cool. She's really, really cool. But the point being is that like she interviewed her grandma recently for me to ask about like the aliens, because they in that time frame, in that period, there's still people. I know everybody says, oh, they're all dead, but like, no, the consciousness of that city, of that time, that era, there's still a lot of people alive who were around and heard the rumors or things going on in the city at that time, which I think is valuable. Yeah, and that's the thing is whenever Roswell's, it's amazing. And then in terms of sightings that happen in New Mexico, I would say there are quite a bit, especially when you get out into rural areas. There's quite a bit. It appears that the longer you may have lived in New Mexico and maybe had a connection to the land, maybe the easier it is to actually have these sorts of communications. Not to mention that we have Sue Walker, who's in active communication with the Ponte who live in the Sandia Mountains. Some people say that, and then you got Bob Lazar was out here walking around, right? He worked at Los Alamos. Lots of interesting things, the Trinity site, the nuclear bomb, how it was right next door to Roswell. It's all very interesting. Yeah. So I mean, in terms of sightings, I don't keep track so much of that, but it's the history that's really fascinating to me about it.
Well, I saw on your channel recently that you had a picture of a CE5 event UFO. Now, is that one you filmed?
CE5 event UFO of mine?
Yeah, you show it on your outro. It's the beginning of your
Yes.
outro.
Yes, that was my CE5 photo. Yes. I don't know. I made that video a long time ago, and I kind of was like, I don't know, out there, and I saw something, and I thought it was cool, and I went out there, and I took a photo of it, and I thought, I'm going to put it on the internet and tell everyone. Oh, it was also, okay, so I can't hide. It was a Stephen Greer CE5 Initiative Global Day. You get the email.
Right.
And it's like, do CE5 this day. So it's one of those days. So I was out there like, I know Greer's trying right now. And then I saw something and I thought, man, this is a CE5 Global Initiative Day with Stephen Greer. And I got a picture of a UFO. I'm going to put this all over the internet. So that was actually the first video I did. So yeah, I got a little CE5 photo. I don't know. It's fascinating. I mean, yeah, I've seen things. I think it's part of the process, I guess. I'm just as confused in what I study and like get into it as I am in the things that I've seen in the sky. And the things that I've experienced personally, all of those things are very confusing to me. And it's probably why I want to learn more about it, as much as I can.
Thank you for letting us know about your UFO sighting. Hey, Matt.
I don't think you asked that, but there you go.
It's okay. Hey, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us about whether you've had any sightings, and if so, what?
Well, I have a number of different sightings and experiences. Like I said, first sighting was of a visual UFO, a teenager right outside my friend's house, circa 1978. Triangle UFO coming up from out in the woods in the back, came towards me, tilted at a 45-degree angle, and just shot up like it was shot out of a cannon without making a sound. As far as first paranormal or alien experience, I was 3.5 years old, and it was an abduction experience. So, then, as I told you, that's how I met my first wife. I was on board craft. We got introduced and then met up later in, what we call stark reality. Then wound up getting divorced years later, but for human reasons. And then I met up with the Starborn twins, and so here we are, deja vu all over again. So that's when I started, while I was working with Bud Hopkins, about with people that have, we'll call it coupling type of abduction cases. So I worked with him for a number of years doing that. And large cigar UFO right over my house with several people inside. I mean, it was like less than 100 feet above the house, and this thing had to be about 200 or 300 feet long. I had several other UFO encounters and people there with me. It would take me too long to recount all of them.
It was nice.
I'll just wind up rambling.
But that's okay. We enjoy the fact that you're sharing with us, because people need to know that this is going on. And it's a real phenomenon. I mean, we're told it's real, but when you share with other people your stories, it makes it even more real. Jane?
It humanizes. If that's, I get where you're going. It creates a,
Okay, I'm going to go to Jane. Jane, any last comments?
Oh, I mean, I don't have any experience. I think I saw a UFO one time well after being a researcher, and I didn't make a video about it, Amy. It just comes up in conversations like this where people are sharing, and it's like, that's my one. That's my one. I'd like to see something. But I think it's been good for me because I can live through witnesses, but I can also be more objective and just focus on the nuts and bolts and provide that angle for the community. But I also I have stigmatism too, so I think it makes it hard for nighttime sky gazing.
I have a question for you, Jane.
Yeah.
Now, you said you've had a UFO experience, right?
Yeah, yes. Well, yes, I saw lights. I didn't know what they were.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I've discovered, I like doing this when I talk to other people. It's like most people that have seen a UFO also have other paranormal things happen in their lives, either experiencing ghosts, Bigfoot, some sort of psychic thing, some other unexplained thing has also happened in their lives. Would you say that is accurate in your case?
Yeah. So I don't when I think about childhood growing up, nothing really. I feel and I've always been a naturally spiritual person, if that makes sense. I've always felt very world's magical. I've always believed that. So I've always had that in me. But yeah, nothing happened at all. As I just grew up and became more conscious, just learning about UFOs, I guess, and becoming a mom. I've talked about this before, but I've definitely had weird dreams. See, I had, when I was pregnant with my son, I had a series of dreams that came true the next day, and they were very boring. It wasn't anything significant. It wasn't anything you'd make any decisions about.
Beyond the normal.
Yes, but it was just, I never had dreams like that. So for my whole life, not true. I had a few lucid dreams as a kid, but that was it, no precognitive dreams. And so to have several of them in this one period of my life, and then afterward, my son and I had a few weird dreams. We were in a hotel room, we slept, head to head, and we both had dreams about ants. And one person remembered the next day, and then I remembered. And so my skeptical brain is well, do we really know when we have dreams, right? Maybe I dreamt something years ago, and my brain is telling me I just dreamt it the other night. So, but the timeline of just being a normal dreamer, being pregnant, suddenly dreams change, kind of continued on. When my son was little, I've since, I think, had more meaningful dreams. So I definitely connect to people when they talk about, I definitely have always felt intuitive. So back to my childhood, I get by on my intuition. So that's kind of how I make all my decisions. Every single good decision in my life it's really been based on intuition. Yeah, I mean, you have all the brain knowledge. So I'd say, yes, I feel very much we need to listen to the universe, whatever it is, and saying. And so that's probably, I think that's a paranormally thing for sure. Yeah, but I haven't seen a ghost. I haven't seen Bigfoot. I don't want to. I've already shared a lot. My son, again, it's all around my son. He definitely had an imaginary friend experience that was spooky as hell, that I was not looking for, seeking. I'm not a ghost hunting person. That's not my thing. And we don't have to talk about it today. I could talk about it another time. But so, a lot connected to my son, really. And that just whole experience of motherhood seemed to awaken something.
Let me share something with you. My mentor shared with me. I was lucky to have a very good mentor in all this paranormal back in the day. And I've never found truer words. For every step you take towards the unknown, it takes two towards you.
Ooh.
That's kind of scary.
I get that. I feel that. I feel it. Yeah. So as soon as you try to catch it, it just it disappears.
You're reaching for here. It's already up in your face. You step back and it's moved back several feet. So it's always in motion. You're trying to catch something that, is always in motion, and it's quicker than you.
Yeah. I feel that. That's good. I love that.
Cheers.
Yes, good one.
Okay, we're gonna go around the circle and take last comments. So Matt, do you have a last comment?
Yes. Buy low, sell high. Oh, you meant
Okay.
about paranormal. Yeah. Keep your eyes to the skies.
Right. Jane?
Just thanks for keeping up with me, guys. I appreciate this is a really fun conversation. It was stimulating, and I'm just having trouble verbalizing, but I'm just appreciate you guys hanging in there with me and keeping me entertained for this last hour and a half.
You're more than welcome to be here anytime, and you're more than welcome to come back anytime as well.
Maybe when I'm not on Mucinex and
Okay.
a cold, and I'll have a little more eloquent words for everybody.
Okay. Alien Girl, what's up?
Yeah,
Any last
I just want to
comments?
say yes, UFO Jane is number one. And I appreciate everything that you do for the community. You are a huge voice that is taking over, and I love everything you say. When you talk, so many people are in alignment with what you're saying. And
Right.
It doesn't sound too out there, and it doesn't sound like you don't believe either. Like and that's what's really nice. Like somebody will talk about an abduction, you won't be like, but you'll be open to it, and there needs to be voices more like you. So I just want to say Jane is awesome. Thanks so much for letting me hang out with you guys tonight. This is super exciting Saturday night. So yeah, thanks for all you do, Jane. Thank you, Tim, for letting me come on the show, and Matt, thank you so much for the stimulating converation tonight.
Yeah,
Very
Matt,
fascinating.
that was a lot of bombs you dropped, Matt, in a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way. So
Anytime for any of you, you can come back to UFO Man channel anytime and hang out. We'd love to have you. We do have a couple ads I need to play real quick. They're real short. My UFO Man song that was written by Brothers of Alien Rock had been released as of the 19th. So here's a quick video clip of that.
yeah,
Anyways.
that's awesome. I love Brothers of Alien Rock. They're great.
Yeah, they're going to be on my channel on August 27th, so next weekend. And they're going to be playing that song live, along with possibly a couple cuts from their new album called 4. So, or the Green Album, actually. So come by and check it out. We also have one other thing we need to play. This is for
They're also going to be playing live at UFO Expo.
Right, here we go. Okay,
what a cool lineup.
Just wanted to let everybody know that UFO Man will also be represented at UFO Expo this year, and Matt Moniz is going to be doing some interviews for me there.
I'm also going to be running the AV system and running the whole ship behind it.
Also, Brothers of Alien Rock are going to play my song live there, so that'll be cool. So if you're there, check it out. I want to thank everybody on the panel for coming this evening. I also want to thank everybody who watched online and also everyone who participated in the chat room. And from myself, Matt, Alien Girl, and UFO Jane, I want to say good night and hope to see you next Saturday when we have Brothers of Alien Rock. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tim.